over why UFC 330 is a terrible card and how you fix it. So, obviously, in the past couple weeks of UFC and this upcoming week with the Quillen Salkild versus Mateus Gamrot fight card, we've gone through some slop. I mean, 329 was good other than the main event. Azerbaijan was good. Fight nights before that were good. But then once we hit the Guskov versus Ankalaev card, it was like, okay, that was a stinker. The Serbia card turned out to be good, but name-wise it was not great. And, we can just go over the Salkild card as well, which I'm going to have to make my predictions for tomorrow, if this thing will ever load. But the Salkild card is not great. Other than the main event, which is a good fight and interesting, the rest of the card is terrible, if it will ever load. One ranked fight. Oh, two, but it's a women's fight. Yeah, not a lot of, Louis Sutherland, bruv. That's an amazing. Juliana Miller, whoa. Half these guys, Steven Asplund, that should be a good performance. Ty Miller's kind of fun, but I'm having to hardcore over this. Oh, Ty Miller's pretty fun to watch. Steven Asplund, this is not a great card. This is an awesome fight. Hopefully Salkild wins. And it's an Apex fight, so just not great either. Okay, but now let's look at the crappy pay-per-view that is UFC 330, if it ever loads. But so yeah, we're going through some slop. Ankalaev versus Guskov, terrible card, a stinker. The Serbia card turned out to be a banger, but name value wise, kind of a stinker as well. This card, the Gamrot versus Salkild card, one good fight, super stinker. Apex stinker. The Apex are always stinkers, but this one is worse somehow because you see the main event and you're hyped for that and you're like, oh my god, it's literal poop other than that. And then you see, oh, a pay-per-view, UFC 330, Makhachev versus Gary. That's one of the most interesting fights of the year. And usually when you're going through a rough patch of boring fight night cards, a pay-per-view is there to save you. And you think, oh, the pay-per-view's going to save us here. And then you look at it. This is not saving. Edson Barboza as a feature fight in 2026. I couldn't name you his last win. Mansur Abdul Malik, Dustin Stoltzfus on a main card. Jeff Neal on this isn't even Jeff Neal. I think it's gonna be, what's his name, the Spanish guy that Yaroslav Amosov beat last time. Joel something, I can't remember his name, I'm blanking on it, but still, that on a main card, I'll just go fight by fight and explain why this card is absolutely terrible. I'll start off with the main event, and if we're being honest, the main event is a great fight. Other cards have been more hyped than UFC 330, obviously, and other fights have been more hyped, like the Conor McGregor fight, Topuria versus Gaethje, and Strickland versus Chimaev, because there was a lot of trash talk in those fights, and also one of them was the White House card, and one of them's McGregor. But if we're going off just the most skillful and most interesting fight this year, this clears it out of the way. Islam Makhachev, with a couple more wins, title wins, could potentially make himself the greatest of all time. He's going on there. Even though he doesn't have as many title wins as John Jones, his wins are way more impactful and way more meaningful in this the era of skill that we're in right now and just the type of wins that he has. Also, with this fight, if he wins, he will be breaking Anderson Silva's win streak and have the record for longest win streak. But it's not an easy challenge in front of him. Ian Gary is just so good, man, and he's young and he keeps improving. He's only 28. Even if he loses this fight, he'll definitely become a champion in the future. But it's just a really interesting fight because, to be honest, I think I'll be picking Ian Gary. Ian Gary's the biggest guy Islam's ever had to fight. Way more well-rounded than JDM. I mean, he's in Brazil training with Oliveira. He's taken the back of guys like Shavkat in their fight on short notice. His only loss is to Shavkat on short notice. Not a bad loss. Very close fight as well. But also, this is the first time Islam's going to have to fight on the front foot. Usually Islam fights on the back foot and is very elusive and very defensively sound. But with Ian Gary, he's going to have to chase him. Ian Gary does not go forward. Ian Gary hits you with a jab and a leg kick and then darts out of range. So Islam's going to actually have to be the guy chasing another fighter for the first time. But then there's the wrestling. Can Islam take him down and ragdoll him like JDM? I mean, I don't think so. Ian Gary defended all the takedowns of Bilal, but Bilal's maybe a better pure wrestler than Islam, but Islam has body throws, judo throws, and a lot of crafty, sneaky stuff, man. And also his striking is a lot better than Bilal's. So he can set up the takedowns and grappling with the striking way better than Bilal ever could. So, I mean, this is just a really interesting fight. And as I'd said before, I would say the most interesting fight of the year. Not hype-wise, but just if you look at the fight from like a very technical standpoint, I think it's the most interesting fight of the year easily. Unless something, I don't know what could be better than this. I mean, this is pretty much like Islam versus Volk level of technique and skill, but with Islam being even more challenged because it's not a Volk who's probably more skilled than him but smaller, or just as skilled as him but smaller. It's a guy who's just as skilled as him but bigger than him. So, I mean, if Islam can win this, that definitely pushes him a lot higher in terms of legacy and standing in the GOAT list. And then if he can beat a Prates or a Morales as well, I think he definitely is the GOAT. But so now I've shown you why the main event is a great fight and why I'm very excited for it. And now we get to the rest of the card. You can see the title fight kind of poking out here, and we'll get on to this one. The co-main event, another title fight. So usually when you think of a crappy card, it has one title fight that's kind of just like, eh. So you're like, oh, but this 2 title fights can't be that bad. Well, one of them is a women's title fight, so it can still be, it's going to be bad, you know. But, I mean, this one is just Mackenzie Dern, the UFC, at the weigh-ins. That will be the only good part of this fight, pretty much, is when the cameraman does his job, if you know what I'm saying. But other than that, man, like, I mean, Mackenzie Dern's not completely boring. She's not like Valentina Shevchenko level. I mean, her fight against Angela Hill, she beat the crap out of her. That was pretty fun. Her last fight when she won the title wasn't terrible, but it was kind of a stinker. UFC 321 and as a whole was a stinker. But she's not completely boring. But Jillian Robertson, I know she has a lot of finishes, but if she can't finish you, she's going to be pretty boring. Like in her last fight over, Amanda Lemos, when she won by decision, like kind of close by just getting the takedowns and laying ground and pound. It was kind of a stinker. And, you know, if we're just being honest, women's fights and women's titles fights just aren't as entertaining or as hyped up as the men's. Like, the last hyped up women's title fight, or fight in general, was when Zhang Weili moved up to fight Valentina Shevchenko because we thought she would lighter woman skill her. But then she just got blobbed in one of the worst title fights of last year, you know. And there was a couple of them that were pretty bad, you know. Islam's last fight being one of them. But yeah, this fight is just not that hyped. I don't care about it. Like, this is really the first big women's fight of the year. They haven't done any women's title fights until this one, or even women's like title eliminator fights or anything like that. So that's kind of crazy. But yeah, this fight, just don't care about it really. And now I actually thought about another point that I'm gonna go back to the main event. I mentioned some of the worst. Oh shoot. I mentioned some of the worst title fights of the year, and one of them being Islam Makhachev's fight versus JDM, obviously a very big snoozer. Even though I said this is one of the most interesting fights of the year, I feel like I have to mention this. This fight could turn out to be very boring, no matter who wins. It's not just if Islam wins. Like, I think Ian Gary's very skillful, but he's not super entertaining. So if Islam wins, he could potentially win by just very boring smudge decision like he did last time. But if Gary wins, it could just be like Jeff Neal, his fight against Jeff Neal and dudes like that, where it's just tip tap out of range striking, which is also very boring. I'm hoping. So this fight could potentially be such a snoozer, man, is what I'm saying, no matter who wins. I'm hoping it turns out like what we're thinking it will be, like kind of like a Volk versus Islam, where they're so skillful. It's such a skillful back and forth, like fight of the night, fight of the month, fight of the year candidate. But it could not be. It could turn out to not be like that very easily, you know. But I'm hoping it will, because when Islam is tested by somebody good like Volk, he has a fun fight like that. And when Gary's had somebody who's at least dangerous, like Prates, that was a pretty fun fight. Obviously, Islam doesn't have the power like Prates, but he has the submission threat and takedown threat. So I'm hoping it turns out fun. But again, we could very potentially have two huge snoozers of title fights on this card. So that's kind of a big problem. And now we're going to get to the really big problem, which is the rest of the card. I mean, we've already gone over one good fight. The other title fight kind of sucks, but now let's get to the rest of the card. I mean, man, I said it before. Edson Barboza on a main of card in 2026. Like, dude, this is not 2016, bro. What is going on? Like, let's just go ahead and check out when Edson Barboza's last win was, because I sure as hell can't remember it. $2023. Yeah, I did not remember that. Like, and to be fair, Esteban Ribovic hasn't. He's coming off a loss as well to Mateusz Gamrot. Not a bad loss to have, but a dominant loss. He got pretty easily beat up in that fight, man. Like, I mean, it's a good. It should be a good fight. Ribovic will probably beat him up, put like 200 strikes on him, significant strikes. But it doesn't matter if it's a good fight. It's not main card caliber. Like, it's just not. This should be. It should. If this was like main eventing the prelims, I'd be like, okay, it should be a fun fight. And Barboza is still a big name. Esteban Ribovic is a fun fighter that people like, but should not be on the main card. And this fight, Mansour Abdul Malik, he's kind of a prospect even with his last loss, which was kind of a bad one. But not main. I mean, a lot of prospects shouldn't be on the main card. I mean, they didn't even put. I know 329 was obviously way more stacked than this, but Gable Stevenson was not on the main card, even though they probably wanted him to be. I mean, they put Bo Nickel on main cards, but people hate it. This guy is not even the level of prospect to that. Like, Mansour Abdul Malik should not be on the main card, and he'll probably get a good finish because they're sacrificing Dustin Stoltzfus to him. Again, Dustin Stoltzfus on the main card of a pay-per-view. He shouldn't. There's no reality where he should probably even be on the main card of a fight night, unless it's like an Apex stinker like the card this weekend. But yeah, man, like, and then this fight, Jeff Neal coming off a couple of bad losses, but I don't even. Jeff Neal pulled out of the fight, I believe, so it's not even him. I believe it's going to be what's his name? Joel Alvarez. I almost said Garcia. Just naming random Hispanic names, I guess. But, yeah, like, I mean, that's an alright fight. That could headline. That should be a fun striking matchup. Him and Chidi Jaquani. That should be a fun fight. But that's like prelim material, man. So this main card is just terrible. There's 2 title fights and then not even one ranked fight on there. Because there was it was Aaron Blanchfield versus I forget who. But it was a ranked fight, again, women's fight. So, but at least some sort of ranking on the line. And then that's off the card. So this is just a tough one, man. I mean, the prelims. I mean, this is not terrible for the prelims. This should be a fun fight. I'm glad Jalen Turner's back from his 2-second retirement because he's always a pretty fun fighter. This one's whatever. Eric McConaughey, whatever. Dante Johnson, This one pretty good, I'd say. Neil Magny, hopefully he gets another Classic win, but this is pretty good card for the prelims. This could be a banger. Hopefully Vicente Luque gets a win. And I've been saying this will probably be a banger. MacTech Orobai always brings in a fun fight, and at welterweight, the dudes hopefully are big enough where they can, even if they're not as good as him, put up a good enough fight and just be strong to defend his grappling, and then we get bangers like Orobai's had with Rubeshi and stuff like that. But I don't know if this is even on the early prelims because a lot of dudes were complaining that Orobai was on the main card, which if he's the opener of the main card, he's such a fun fighter, I don't care, but still, that's just not, this is, the early prelims and prelims are okay, but the main card, man, and also, I feel like there's just not a lot of fights on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 fights. A pay-per-view usually has 12 to 15. They just it seems like they really could not get anything for this card, man, or they are not trying, because with the thing about this Paramount deal is they're not selling pay-per-views. They got their $7.7 billion for 7 years, so they could put on slop, and it's this isn't a pay-per-view anymore. It's not like it has to sell pay-per-view buys, so they really don't have to care anymore, but they should still be putting on good cards, man. The UFC, just because they're getting guaranteed $1.1 billion a year doesn't mean they can just put on crappy cards for the fans that are paying their money to Paramount Plus, man. That's BS. But now I've explained why this card is just abysmal for a pay-per-view, terrible. I mean, without the title fights, this would be horrible for a Apex Fight Night card. That's how bad this card is. So now I'm gonna explain how you fix UFC 330. If this will ever load. So yeah, UFC 330 sucks. And I'm gonna explain how you fix it. So, obviously, UFC 330 is a pay-per-view being done in Philadelphia. The UFC has made a big deal out of going back to Philadelphia. The mayor of Philadelphia, I believe, announced it and is saying that they're getting their relationship with the UFC back. So, obviously, this is a big deal for the UFC. So, you wonder, are there any notorious Philly fighters that can be on this card and would love to fight in front of their home crowd, and who are also ranked fighters who add a lot to this card and would make this card not a stinker if added to the main card? And I say why yes there is, and I'm going to go over 2 of them. So here's one of the fights you make, that being Sean Brady versus Yaroslav Amosov. Obviously, Sean Brady, I would say, is the most notorious Philly fighter. He's been in the UFC for a while, been a top 5 contender, top 10 contender for a while. Currently, I believe number 5 in the rankings. So a top 5 contender, having hit a top 5 contender versus an unranked fighter adds a lot to this card. But having a top 5 contender versus another top 15 contender in what should be a good fight with amazing scrambles and grappling and a very fun fight, that adds a lot to this card. Having this as the featured fight or below the featured fight, depending on how they arrange the fights I want to put on here, this would help the card tremendously. I mean, both these guys, I feel like this is possible. I know this is the thing about this video. I was going to make it last week when we were 3 weeks out, and I was going to be like, I hope they do this, but it's not seeming like they care with only 3 weeks out. Like, usually they don't announce fights that short out. And now with only like a week out, really, over a little bit over a week out, it's really unlikely, but I'm just going to have to hope and pray to the MMA gods that this happens. But this fight adds a lot. I mean, and I feel like it's possible. I mean, both these guys didn't take a whole lot of damage in their last fight. I mean, Sean Brady fought Joaquin Buckley and 30-24'd him. You know, Joaquin Buckley's never heard of what a takedown is, so he just took him down endlessly and took no damage. And Yaroslav Amosov fought Joel Alvarez and took him down for the first round, beat him up, and then took him down and submitted him in the second round. So, I mean, both these guys coming off fights from not that long ago, but both didn't take really any sort of damage in those fights. So, like, why would it not be possible to set this up? And, I mean, it would be another looking down the rankings fight for Sean Brady, which he's done a lot of. He's a company man, so I think he'd be willing to do it again. But him looking down the rankings kind of makes sense because all the dudes above him, Michael Morales already beat him. Prates is just going to be waiting for a title shot. And Ian Gary, you know, obviously fighting for the title, so you can't do that. But so this makes sense. And also, a lot of the guys below him, you can't, you know, Joaquin Buckley can't do. Leon Edwards can't do. Mike Malott can't do. He's in a fight. Kamaru Usman, I want to see the fight with Bilal Muhammad, but I always thought, after beating Joaquin Buckley, I thought Kamaru should call out Sean Brady, because if you can defend takedowns and have a little bit of pop in your hands, Sean Brady will just give up. But Kamaru Usman, I want him to fight Bilal, but I think he might be staying at middleweight. I don't know what's on with him, so the Kamaru fight's probably not happening. And I think Uros Medic should fight Leon Edwards, so I think this is a fight that makes sense. But, I mean, if Uros Medic is willing to take that fight on like a week, 2 weeks notice, do that too. But I just think this is a fight that makes sense, and I'm hoping that this has been, you know, negotiations behind the scenes and that somehow the UFC is just going to announce this week. But I don't know. This fight adds a lot to the card and a great fight. Feature fight, or maybe the fight under the next fight that I'm going to do, because the next fight I've created are a little bit higher in the rankings. But I think they should do this. I think it makes sense. I think it's possible. The only thing about this is if the UFC is going to do it and announce it. So, but on to the next fight, which is a banger at the middleweight division. That being Joe Pyfer versus Brendan Allen. Joe body cam off Pyfer versus Brendan Allen, one of the goofiest fighters in the UFC. This would be a banger. I mean, and I think this would probably have to be above Sean Brady and Amosov, because these guys are both like top 5. Maybe Brady's like number 6 and Brendan Allen's like actually it might be 5 and 4. It's either 5 and 4 or 6 and 5 for their rankings. So both guys are higher ranked on average than the next fight. And this will probably be a better fight because that fight could be boring potentially, but at least it's ranked matchup and a fight that matters. But it could be decently fun with scrambles. But this fight, I mean, these guys, Joe Pyfer could just murder anybody with one punch, but Brendan Allen is a blockhead who will walk forward, and maybe we'll see a guy who doesn't just crumble when Joe Pyfer hits him once. So I think this should be a more entertaining fight, and I think if this gets added to the card, this would for sure be fight of the night. You could place your money on it. But I mean, this fight, it could be a little less possible than the last one. I think Joe Pyfer can definitely take a fight on this card, and I don't know why he wouldn't want to. I mean, the Israel Adesanya fight, he didn't really take that much any damage, a second round finish. And also, I don't remember when that was, but it was a couple months ago now. I feel like it was like February or something. So he's probably going to be wanting to get back in there around this time anyways, and especially, it was March, but the fight with Izzy was March. But yeah, he's probably going to be wanting to get in there around this time anyways, and why wouldn't he want to get in the cage in his home city of Philly and get to fight in front of his Philadelphia crowd, a crowd that's going to be behind him? And anybody's dream fight would probably be, other than like the White House or the Coliseum, would be where they live. Like if I got to fight in the stadium where I live, I would, even if it's on one day's notice against the heavyweight champion, I'd probably do it because that's an experience with your home crowd that you'll never get like that. That's one of the coolest experiences you could have. So Joe Pyfer definitely and Brady definitely want to do this. They just need a fight. The worrying thing about this matchup could be Brendan Allen, because his last fight was not that long ago, and it was kind of a scrap. He took a little bit of damage, so that could be a problem. But I just think this is a fight you have to make, and Brendan Allen's kind of a company man, so he'd be willing to take this, I think. Yeah, only a month ago, actually like 2 months ago. So I mean, this is possible. It's not completely impossible, but I don't know. There's other guys at middleweight that you can give Joe Pyfer, because obviously you kind of need Joe Pyfer for this matchup because he's the Philly guy at middleweight. You could even do Joe Pyfer versus Caio Borralho. Caio Borralho should be good. And that's still Joe Pyfer's number 4 in the rankings, so that'd be number 4 versus number 6. But I just think this is a better matchup, and I think this is what, after Brendan Allen's last fight, I thought this is what they should do anyways, especially on this Philly card. But I don't know. So if you can't do Brendan Allen, at least do Caio Borralho. All I know is you need to have Joe Pyfer on this card. He adds a lot. He's going to be a guaranteed finish, or if not, a guaranteed war fight of the night. And that's what this card needs, with all the stinkers on it and possible stinkers on it. And also, it's just name value. I mean, Joe Pyfer's a number 4 middleweight. Brendan Allen's number 5. Or if you do Caio Borralho, number 6. So 2 top 5, top 10 contenders added to this card really adds a whole lot of value. With the Sean Brady fight, if you have this as the featured fight, and then the Sean Brady below that, and then the Barboza fight to open the card, I mean, still kind of a weak opener for a main card, but I mean, it's not terrible. 2 title fights and these 2 fights, that's a pretty good card. But I mean, I'm just worried about the possibility of these 2. So if you can't do these 2 fights, if there's just no way you can't do these 2 fights, there's one fight that you add to this card that saves it, that is probably going to be more hype. Not probably, definitely going to be, at least hype-wise, bigger than the main event, and definitely the co-main, and any other fight on this crappy card. And this fight, both these guys coming off fights where almost doesn't even really count as a fight. One of them probably shouldn't even. but fights where they barely lasted over a minute, if one of them under a minute, both took no damage, could get back in there next week, could have gone back in the cage after their fight. They took so little damage. And I know if you watch this, you'll probably be like, "Oh, you're a casual. I mean, this is a dumb fight. It's impossible." But it's not impossible. It's very possible. And this is like, if you can't do the other two, give these dudes some money, offer them a little extra, maybe offer them a title fight or something like that, title eliminator after, if they, whoever wins, something that'll really incentivize them to take this fight so soon after their last fight. And this fight would just save the card. This fight, obviously, maybe not obviously, but this fight being Paddy Pimblett versus Max Holloway. I mean, this would be one of the most hyped fights of the year. And I know it causes a little problems for some of their possible future matchups. I know obviously everybody wants Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria, and I want that fight too. That's a fight I want. But this is just a theoretical matchup that I believe is very possible to save this pay-per-view as we get so close, where it's like, I hope the two matchups I made before this happened, but it's seeming less and less likely that they do. But this is a fight that, I mean, Paddy won his fight in, I believe, like 56 seconds. Max Holloway, Conor McGregor didn't even land a strike. The fight was over in 1:07 seconds, something like that. So both these guys, Max Holloway barely even had a fight, and he didn't even have a fight, if we're being honest. And then Paddy barely had a fight. He won so fast. I mean, Paddy was saying backstage, "Let me get in there with Holloway," after McGregor, tore his ACL. And he could have. And, I believe he could still get in there now if he needed to. It's going to be a little hard because obviously Paddy balloons up. But, I mean, you don't even have to do this fight at lightweight if he doesn't want to cut the weight. I mean, Max Holloway's he's willing to do stuff at welterweight. And, I mean, Paddy already has a size advantage over Holloway. He's like 5'11", like Holloway, but way bigger. So at welterweight would just give him more of a size advantage. And, I mean, this is a fight. I said you could offer this as a title eliminator to both of them. Or not a title eliminator, but if they win this one and their next fight, they're a title eliminator. Because both these guys, I mean, Paddy had a better fight against Gaethje than Ilia did. And Holloway obviously just easily beat Gaethje. So both these guys, I mean, Paddy obviously doesn't have as good of a claim to the title fight since he lost. But, I mean, a win for these guys, either of these guys, both guys are like top 5 contenders. So a win over each other really helps them get in that title picture. And I know this is what worries me about this fight and where people could call me a casual. Max Holloway, after the McGregor fight, for some reason, when taking no damage, said, "Oh, I'll wait till 2027 till McGregor comes back," which is so dumb. Like, I know I'm not a fighter. I do martial arts, but I've never had a professional MMA fight yet. But just thinking inside the mind of a fighter, if I get a fight and I take no damage, I'm going to be coming back immediately. I'm trying to fight on the next card or the next month, something possible. Obviously, the guy you're fighting has to have a training camp, but why would you not want to be as active as possible if you literally took no damage, did not even get hit once? I mean, I know the training camp takes a toll on your body. That's the most damaging part of a fight, is a training camp, but still, why would you not want to be active? So that's where this fight becomes maybe a little hard to make, but again, that's where you incentivize them with, you give them a big payday or something. I mean, both these guys get paid well, but with Max Holloway, you say if you win this fight and Oliveira loses to Arman or something, or because Oliveira also has a win over Gaethje, so if he beats Arman, he's definitely getting the title shot. But if Oliveira loses, I mean, the UFC's just like, and you win, we hate Arman, we'll just give you the title shot over Gaethje, and you'll probably be more entertaining than Arman will. That's how you get Holloway to take this fight. And to Paddy, you're just like, we give you this fight, and if you win, maybe we can, depending on who wins in Charles versus Arman 2, we can give you a title shot, rematch, Or if Justin Gaethje decides to retire, you win this. We do you versus Ilya next for the vacant title or something like that. Or just you versus Ilya confirmed title shot. And I think Patty would take this fight. As long as he hasn't ballooned up too much, I think you could take it, especially if you do it at welterweight or a catch weight or something like that, and still just have the lightweight rankings on the line. You could definitely do this. And Patty's not a guy that likes to be super active. Like, that's I hate when guys, if you're like, when they're ranked or unranked that aren't active, because it's like when a champion does it, it's annoying and they hold up the division, but they're a champion, so no matter what, you have to care about them because they have the belt. But if you're the number 14 ranked contender and you don't fight for a year, like, people are going to forget about you. That's your star power going away. But so Patty's never been the most active, but I mean, again, backstage he was like, oh, let me get in there with Holloway right after. He called out the winner of McGregor versus Holloway and Topuria. So I think he'd be willing to take this fight. And to be completely honest, in a 3-round fight, which this would be on a pay-per-view, I think I would probably pick Patty to win. He's big and strong. I mean, his takedowns aren't like the best, but Oliveira didn't really use like blast doubles or anything. He kind of just picked Max Holloway up and smudged him. And I think Patty would be able to do that for at least 2 rounds and then gas out and probably get beat up in the third a little bit. But I think he could probably win. And obviously he's not as good of a grappler as Charles. I mean, people are kind of putting him up there in conversation with Charles after his win over BSD, which was a good submission, but, you know, he's not Charles Oliveira. One has the most submissions in UFC history. One just submitted BSD, who shoots him like a tard with his head up, you know. But maybe this is what I was thinking about. Maybe Patty not being as dominant on the ground against Max Holloway like Charles is. Maybe Max Holloway, where when he was against Charles, he couldn't do anything, or if he moved his neck right, he's just getting tapped out. And he was in a body triangle or under Charles in full mount the whole time. He didn't really have an opportunity to do much. Whereas Patty, he's not as dominant on the ground. Maybe he takes him down, and Max Holloway's actually able to get up and wrestle up against him. But while doing that, leaves his neck open and gets put in the padlock or put in a guillotine or thrown in a flying triangle, you know. It's possible, but also maybe, you know, Patty's just offensive wrestling isn't as good as Charles knew, an improved one, and he can't even get the takedowns. And Max Holloway puts a clinic on him. You know, this fight is very, very 50-50, very entertaining, and obviously these two guys are huge, some of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. Patty's like the new McGregor. I mean, so if you can't do the other 2 fights, and you just add this to the card, I would say that card's a banger just because this fight is so good and 2 big enough stars, you know? And you can call me a casual. I don't really care. And it's like, here, I'll explain this too, because I've kind of thought about this. People would be like, why would the UFC do this? They don't care about the pay-per-view sucking. Like, it's slop. They don't care. They are not going to pay these guys, where Max Holloway got like $3 million in his last fight and Paddy Pimblett got probably $1 million in his last fight. Why are they going to do guys that they're going to have to pay so much? And I'll tell you why. UFC 330 is not selling tickets. It's just not. I believe they asked Dana White about it, and he didn't seem too happy with it. It's not selling tickets, man. I think they showed the arena, and it was basically half of it wasn't bought out. So if the UFC runs a fight and half the seats aren't bought out, I mean, that's bad for business. It's not, and they're not selling pay-per-views anymore, so even they can't have a crappy pay-per-view that sells 100K, and at least that's making $6 million for them. That can override the ticket sales sucking. It's not like that. It's all ticket sales for them now. So if this card flops with ticket sales, that's very bad for the UFC. But I'm telling you, if you put this fight, if this gets announced tomorrow, 5 minutes after this gets announced, you'll see UFC 330 sold out, and you'll see scalpers selling nosebleed tickets for I'm not gonna say 1,000 like these guys are as big as McGregor, but you'll see them getting sold out for at least like 600 for a nosebleed ticket. Like none of these guys are McGregor. I said Patty's the new McGregor, but nobody will ever reach McGregor levels. But he's the next best thing. So if the UFC wants to sell tickets to this event, they're either gonna need to add 2 fights like that that the ones I made before that will at least probably it's not going to sell out obviously, but it will get close with 2 Philly guys and then actually a good card. But if they want to get these ticket sales up really, and a matchup that I believe is possible with both these guys taking little to no damage, you do this fight and the arena will sell out within a day. I promise you that. And again, you'll see scalpers selling those tickets, nosebleed tickets for $500-$600. Like, that's what you got to do. But yeah, so that's my thoughts and opinions on why this card sucks and how you fix it. You either do these 2 fights and have the Philly guys on the card and make a pretty good card with two highly skilled and highly ranked fights, or if you can't do these because of the timing, you just put these guys on because they took no damage and this would sell out the arena and be a big fight. That's what you do. So that's my video on why UFC 330 sucks and how you fix it. And if you like the video, comment on it, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.